Welcome to another brain stream. Today, we are not going to talk about websites and AI as much as I want, but I'm going to talk about conversation and LayerOS. We're going to continue on this idea of like this movement into conceptualizing and working to design um, but no better way of saying it, the operating system of the future. It's no secret that I don't agree with the app world, the way applications work. And I haven't ever since I got into augmented reality. It actually started off with a concept that I kind of called I, I called it the three P's or three circles. It was personal, private, and public domain. Definitely could have had a sexier name. Um, but that was an idea of like spatially controlling things. And instead of applications, it was more about how you dealt with it and when you move things out, if you're working with them, not working with them, things like that. Um, this idea of layer OS came from what was inspired by the overhead projector, or also known as like a film projector or like a slide projector. Not the new digital projectors that you have, but in classrooms years ago, we used to have this um, projector that you would put these like transparent um, film, transparent paper on it, and you could draw and create whatever you want. Like, you could create like slides or, you could draw whatever you want and you would put it onto this light and it would project up using a mirror and basically project onto a board or the wall behind you. Now you could stack a few of these transparent papers together and create a scene, or maybe that's how like animation came. It's pretty much animation of like frames, still frames, but like instead of like moving them in time, you could layer on top of each other to create the image that you want um, from things that are connected but not exactly in one frame. And it's kind of this idea that I see us moving to a world um, where apps are not running supreme. Now, my problem with apps is that they share a apps today share, well, applications share so many features with each other that almost when you decide to do something, you're kind of choosing an app based on how sticky it's able to make itself. And it works very well for the app designers, but you're almost, when you want to create something, you're kind of forced to think of what you want to show after the fact. You kind of have to have the image in your head and then select it. Like, think about it. Why do you choose the camera app you're using nowadays? There are so many camera apps. If you want to design a quick thing with filters, you might have to open up Snapchat because that has the filters you want. But then again, you might have good filters on Instagram. So, are you creating reels or Snapchat or snaps or stories? Now, you then have to decide like what happens if you want to put it on a bunch of these different things. Okay, so you might go to a fully fledged animator or post production, things like that, but maybe you want to just have the ease of use of a phone to create it with. So fundamentally, which app do you do? Do you record it in the default camera app on your phone, or do you specifically choose an application that has um, the filter that you want, but maybe you might be losing features that another that this app is missing, but another app might be amazing in. Now, so what app developers do nowadays, they spend all their time just redeveloping similar features that other apps do. And you're almost forced to go, okay, who has the best features at this point? And then you've got to wait for like the next big release, and maybe this app might go, oh, we have all the features of our competitors plus some more come to us. And then 3 months later, the other app has now built in those features plus other ones that you really want. So it becomes very difficult as an end user for application designers and developers. That's amazing for them. But for the end user, for a lot of the time, unless you've got a very, very specific custom app, you're kind of left just figuring out like who has the better experience. And it's very difficult to kind of work between them, especially when you have loyalties and when you've got data like sitting on them. And it becomes quite frustrating. At least as a user, I'm quite frustrated when I have to choose between them. Take the word processor example. Like back in the day, maybe you grew up, you're probably using Microsoft Word because that's what your computer had before. But new apps, new companies came up and developed better word processors, and suddenly a new generation is using that. But in order to collaborate with them, you've got to use the same operating system. So again, it's great for those developers, but for you, it's like, which word processor do I use? And even then, you might not use the big three. Um, I would say Microsoft Word, Google Docs, and then Pages. I don't even know if that's a big one, but Apple might release some amazing stuff that you want to try out, but no one's using your system. And then the file extensions are all different. But then you might want to use something from someone else. So what a company might do is they might create extensions so they could work in it, but they have to build into your app. Your app becomes the grounds for it. But then what's the difference between if you're creating a small note versus a big story or a full document? Or what do you do with with an email? Are you composing the emails in Google Docs and then bringing them to your Gmail? But Gmail is not a fully fledged word processor. It's missing a lot of different functions and features that you might want to have in an email. But maybe you're just jotting down some notes. So am I using voice recorders to jot down, or am I writing them down? Am I using the regular Notes app, or am I going straight into a fully fledged word processor? Um, and then it's what happens if I want to take that somewhere else? It becomes very challenging where you have a lot of these apps, they share common or the main features, but then they've built out their own features, common like they're all sharing a similar idea of like a blank digital piece of paper, but then does it become a notebook, or does it become the staging grounds for a big book, or is it just an email draft? Um, And so then it becomes all about choosing the apps instead of just getting the work done, of just getting straight to what you're attempting to do. And what you're attempting to do might change as you move through it. But if everything is about starting in that app that you've created in, you're now locked in. And now you've got to pay a subscription, or keep with this application when a new application might come out 6 months later that just has a few more better features. And now what do? You'll lose all your data, or you have to learn a new UI. Now, a lot of this comes from this idea of like, so there's this concept of like the post app that some people are talking about, but my vision of this is that the way that it's designed is it's not conducive to the end user. And add to that that I get creative in the most random places where my laptop is not always available. Now, my phone might not have the app built for it because it might just be a an app that's designed on the computer, because today we think we're only going to be productive on the computer, but I could be just as productive on my phone if given the right tools. But when you're thinking about all those really crazy or complicated ways of doing things, and then you try condense as many of those features down because that application demands it. If you want to do it on your phone, now you've got to choose which features do I kick out, how do I do a UI and build it out. And so this whole idea of like being caged into, as the end user, being caged into a specific application where what I want to do might not have been clear from the beginning, and it might morph and build into something. This idea of getting stuck, and every single year having, or every few months having to upgrade, or even jumping ship into a whole new application, a whole new company, because they do something a tiny bit different. They have one or two features that might be a little bit more better. And I go, do I wait for this feature to come to this app, or do I go to the next one? When fundamentally a lot of these apps are sharing a very, very big use case. So I'll say very, very quickly because we have 2 minutes, but basically this is the wireframe, the fundamental vision. That the operating system contains the basics of what an app is, right? An empty canvas for a Word document or a note, a camera app for capturing things. And then just like the overhead layer, which you have transparent images that each might contain a different part of it, as they layer up, you build up an image, you build up a story, you build up um, that experience. So to here, apps are no longer their own individual worlds. They are now just parts of a layer that get added and subtracted as you work. Now, this is where the AI and the whole operating system, this is the cool part of it, is as you work, different tooltips or functionality or whatever we want to call these different layers, they are understanding and slowly learning of where we want to go, and they extend that functionality to us. Now, this makes a lot more sense in a spatial world where you have unlimited amount of room, or you have a desktop which you can work and build in. It gets a little bit harder if you're working with a small screen, but I would argue also that a small screen is not necessarily the best way of doing things when we're moving into a conversational operating system rather than a silent operating system where we look at windows and click with our mouse and type away on our keyboard. Anyways, we're going to continue this further and further. We're going to delve into this in more brain streams, but that's the fundamental backing of it. And we're going to go into, you're going to we're going to explore a lot of different ways of how this can be built out. Um, but for now, I'm going to leave you with the basics because we are coming up on time.